Destruction of Palestine. Let's continue our consideration of the Holy Bible. At the end of our age, just before the second coming of Christ, there will be Muslim nations in the Middle East who will align with the Antichrist in a great confederation of states to attack Israel. When end-time prophecies refer to the early lands of Babylon, Moab, Ammon and Edom, to name a few, they still refer to the geographical areas that the prophets were able to view when the prophecies were first given. Let's see which Muslim nations will participate at this coming war against Israel. O God, do not remain silent, do not turn a deaf ear, do not stand aloof, O God. See how your enemies growl, how your foes rear their heads. With cunning they conspire against your people, Jews, they plot against those you cherish. Come, they say, let us destroy them, Jews, as a nation, so that Israel's name is remembered no more. With one mind they plot together, they form an alliance against you. The tents of Edom, Palestinians and the Ishmaelites, of Moab, Palestinians and the Hagrites, sons of Agar, Ishmaelites or Palestinians. Byblos, Lebanon, Ammon, Jordan, and Jordan, Palestine, Amalek, Palestinians, Philistia, Palestine, with the people of Tyre, Lebanon. Even Assyria, Iran with Iraq, has joined them to reinforce Lot's descendants. Do to them as you did to Midians, as you did to Sisera and Jabin at the river Kison, who perished at Endor and became like dung on the ground. Make their nobles like Oreb and Zeb, all their princes like Zebah and Zalmunna. Who said, let us take possession of the pasture lands of God. Make them like tumbleweed, my God, like chaff before the wind. As fire consumes the forest or flame sets the mountains ablaze. So pursue them with your tempest and terrify them with your storm. Cover their faces with shame, Lord, so that they will seek your name. May they ever be ashamed and dismayed, may they perish in disgrace. Let them know that you, whose name is the Lord, that you alone are the Most High over all the earth. In the time of Solomon, Israel controlled all the promised land. While the nations of Edom, Moab, Ammon, Tyre, Sidon, Lebanon, Damascus, and all the region of the Arabian tribes of the Arabian Peninsula were allowed by God to live in this area of the promised land. Let me remind you that the Philistine people occupied the region of southwest Canaan long before the Israelites came there from Iraq. God commanded to exterminate all nations in the Canaan for their idol worship, but Jews didn't do that. Indeed, the Israelites failed to drive them out of the land, and God told Israel that the people would be allowed to stay in that area of Canaan, but Palestinians will be a danger for Israel. I brought you up out of Egypt and led you, Jews, into the land I swore to give to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. Yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? And I have also said, I will not drive them out before you. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you. I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their ancestors did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain alive in the Canaan to test faith of Jews and to use them in the end-time events of the Third World War of Muslims and Iran against Israel. God warned Jews that Palestinians will be snares to them. From one of the 10 Muslim nations will be revealed a military leader called the Beast or the Antichrist. Maybe he will arise from Turkey if Turkey will lead the war against Israel. And importantly, one of those 10 nations is called the people of the Philistines. After the Babylonian captivity, nations in the Middle East like Elam, Edom, Ammon, Moab, Assyria, and even Babylon began to disappear from the scene. In their place at first was the Empire of Persia. The whole of the Middle East became Persian, just as it later, for a short period, became Greek, then Roman, then Byzantine and Arabic Islamic, then Turkish Islamic. The nations, the descendants, are the same, only their owners were changed. But still we see today Elam, Iran, Edom, Palestine, Jordan, Ammon, Jordan, Moab, Palestine, Assyria, Iran, and even Babylon, Iraq, Iran. Jordan is not stable at present, has a substantial portion of its population seething with discontent and hatred for Israel. This is because they are native Jordanians, but they are Palestinians. We call them Elam, Iran, Edom, Palestine, Jordan, Ammon, Jordan, Moab, Palestine. They are their descendants. Those Palestinians may strive to attack Israel. God will sort them out. Iraq is Assyria and Babylon. The Jordan River will be Israel's border soon, and border of Israel will be changed soon after the complete destruction of Palestine. How will the border changes occur? We will continue to hear of wars and rumors of wars as Jesus predicted. Domestic and international conflict shall continue. Putin bombs Ukraine for 1 year, but destruction of terrorists in Gaza for 2 months forces him to attack Israel too and Jewish allies. Russian President Putin will participate in a virtual meeting of G20 leaders on November 22 to force nations to intervene in the war against terrorists of Hamas. Why does Russia protect Hamas funded by Iran, Qatar and Lebanon? Why does Russia construct nuclear facilities in Iran to be used against Israel and America? Why does Russia lead a 1-year war in Ukraine if Putin was able to finish this war since the beginning, very quickly changing the Ukrainian government and capturing its capital? Is his purpose death and to cause death? Ponder. Why did Putin arrange meetings and friendly relationships with snakes of Hamas and Hezbollah attacking Israel? Ponder. Following the Tower of Babel destruction by God, early movements of peoples into all areas of the world at the dispersal were made with just a handful of individuals. There were as yet no races of people as we know them today. It took time for the various races to appear from the 8 people who came through the flood. In the animal world it takes about 8 to 10 generations to create a new breed, say of a dog, and in God's own way, God caused new breeds of humans by placing small groups of people in various isolated areas of the world to develop into the racial types of people we see on Earth today. Why are these groups so different today? Was it caused by a nuclear destruction of the Babylon Tower? Babylon pyramids were created by people and the fallen angels to be their dwelling place. God destroyed them. Maybe radiation after the explosion of the Babylon Tower caused mutations and changes even in languages. We do not know that. God indicates that 10 generations can apply to one type of people before they become like another type. By the time of the Exodus, about 10 generations from the time of the dispersal at the Tower of Babel, we know that racial types had then come into existence because Israel came out of Egypt with a mixed multitude in their midst. All races on earth today are assigned their areas of influence by God himself, though humans are all of one blood to one another. In dispersing the nations around the world, God was forcing the first settlers to navigate to their assigned locations on earth. The Bible shows that during the time Israel was in Egypt, there was a population explosion among the settled peoples of the Middle East. The Israelites grew great in numbers, but so did those in Canaan and elsewhere in the Middle East. Recall that, even with their numbers, the Israelites were still afraid to attack the peoples in the land of Canaan, because their populations also increased. But still they did that, asking God to participate in wars with them. As for Israel, once they conquered the land of Canaan, they ceased to call it Canaan and they placed their own name Israel on the region. But when the Amalekites, who were desert dwellers, took over Egypt, the newcomers did not change the name of Egypt to one of their own. They continued to call the nation Egypt, i.e., Mizraim, its earliest name for Egypt, for the next 300 years. In fact, all future conquerors of Egypt continued to use the name Egypt, Mizraim, for the region. And in the area of Canaan, the modern-day Israel, there are historical records to show that Joshua, and later Israelites not only drove out most of the Canaanites, they even pursued them into North African areas all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Only Palestinians were left. These Palestinians are alive yet today for a while to be exterminated by God and Jews for the evil of their terrorist religion Islam, stealing, raping and murder of their Jewish brothers whom God loved with the everlasting love. Amen.